During the 1960s, it was discovered that the game chess was trending with young men, so a couple of salespeople from the Tom McCann shoe store opened the first Chess King clothing store in 1968. The chain was popular into the 1980s for all things fashion and would end up having over 500 locations nationwide. In 1993, retailer Merry-Go-Round purchased Chess King, and they would subsequently go on to file bankruptcy, which forced Chess King to close all of their stores in 1995. Hickory Farms started in 1951 and grew to become a staple in malls across the country. The meat and cheese retailer would go on to open over 1,000 locations, which included both physical stores and kiosks. By 2000, the company shifted away from mall locations and focused primarily on their catalog business. Occasionally, Hickory Farms kiosks still pop up in malls, but they are becoming increasingly harder to find, especially as malls themselves close up. Casual Corner opened in 1950 and peaked with 525 stores by the year 2000. The company not only operated Casual Corner, but they also ran stores called Petite Sophisticate and August Max. Initially, Casual Corner sold women's sportswear, but in the 1990s they retooled their lineup and began offering clothing for working women too. By 2005, the chain was facing stiff competition, and they were struggling to make a profit, so by the end of the year, all of the remaining stores were closed. Wilson's Leather started out in Beverly Hills as Wilson's House of Suede in 1950. During the 1970s, the chain began producing products overseas, which saved them money and allowed for expansion into shopping malls. It wasn't until 1986 that the name was changed to Wilson's Leather, and the company would continue to grow until it peaked at over 750 locations in 2002. From here it was downhill. Over the course of the next decade, many of the locations closed. They instead refocused on an online shopping experience, with the remaining retail locations closing up too. The t-shirt chain Gadzooks was founded in 1983 in Texas. The store was a teenage hotspot, and their retail lineup catered to young people. To take up floor space in the early years, Gadzooks used VW Bugs as displays, and it would eventually become a trademark at most of their locations. There were nearly 200 stores by the mid-1990s. In 2003, the chain decided to drop their underperforming boys' clothing line in an effort to boost girls' sales, but the gamble didn't pay off. In 2004, they filed for bankruptcy, and eventually Forever 21 would buy the company and phase out the remaining stores. The Kinney Shoe Company opened in 1894 and was the largest family shoe retailer by 1936. Woolworths bought the company in 1963 and would go on to create a new division of Kinney called Foot Locker. Kinney remained a big name in the shoe business through the 1990s. That was, of course, until their parent company began closing hundreds of stores. In 1998, the last remaining Kinney shoes was closed, but the brand still lives on in their sister store, Foot Locker. JCPenney was once a fixture of many downtown areas, but as shopping malls grew in popularity, JCPenney shifted to anchoring many of these malls. This giant of retail started in 1902 and would grow to over 2,000 stores by the time it peaked in 1973. The 1980s and 1990s were spent selling off divisions and closing underperforming stores. Trying to figure out where they fit in the world of big box stores and online shopping has been difficult, and a 2020 bankruptcy would end up leading to fewer and fewer locations. Today, it's hard to even find a mall with a JCPenney. Fashion Bug, which was started in 1940, was a specialty and plus-size clothing retailer that would grow to 1,200 stores nationwide. The stores catered to middle and lower class pocketbooks and would become the foundation of a larger company called Charming Shops, which would also own Lane Bryant and Catherine's Plus. In 2012, Charming Shops announced that all Fashion Bug stores would be closing, with the final store closing its doors in February of 2013. B. Dalton Booksellers started in 1966 by Bruce Dayton of Dayton's department store out of Minneapolis. He named it after himself with one letter changed, and he liked the way it just sounded dependable. Stores peaked at nearly 800 locations, but they were struggling to compete with discount booksellers. So by 1986, B. Dalton sold to Barnes & Noble. The chain continued to shrink, and by 2010, Barnes & Noble closed the last remaining B. Dalton stores. Circus World was originally founded in 1964 as Child's World. The toy store would be sold and renamed Circus World in 1970 and would grow to 330 locations. The drugstore Rite Aid owned the company during the 1980s, and by 1990, they were bought up by KB Toys. Most of the Circus World locations were converted over, but a few of them carried the name up until 1996. Wet Seal got its start in California in the 1960s, but took the name Wet Seal in 1990, after the owner described a model wearing a bathing suit as looking like a wet seal. The mall store was a hit during the 1990s, and they looked for other concepts to help them expand. A new store called Arden B was the result, so together with Wet Seal, the chain grew to over 500 locations. In 2013, Wet Seal was in direct competition with Forever 21, and they were losing. By 2015, they filed for bankruptcy and closed over 300 locations. Officially, the last retail location stayed open until 2017. That's when the business moved to be strictly an online store. Let me know in the comments if I missed any of your favorite mall stores. If you enjoyed this video, click on this playlist to watch even more. And as always, thank you so much for watching.